Hello and welcome back to another episode of Talking Boxing. I'm your host Cody Ziegler. We are coming off of a Danny Garcia fight weekend. Yes, a Danny Garcia fight weekend. And it's very weird to hear he fought at the Barclays Center, I believe, in Brooklyn. Put together a little card promoted by his own promotional company, Swift Promotions. But yeah, supposedly it was a Danny Garcia retirement fight. He faced Daniel Gonzalez. This was set really as his farewell to Brooklyn fight, I think they called it. So yeah, it was supposed to be a retirement fight for Danny, and he goes out there and he knocks out Daniel Gonzalez with a classic left hook in the fourth round to close out his career in great form. But the real question is, does he retire? Does he really retire, or is this another situation like we see with like Pacquiao and these guys, where every professional fighter they have somewhat of an ego, and especially when they're coming off a big win like this, in their mind, their fighter ego tells them, I can still do this. Let's keep going because there's more paydays coming. There's bigger opposition that I could go face. Even though in reality, maybe it is taking a little bit too far. You saw it with Pacquiao. I mean, he went in there and went toe to toe with Mario Barrios. I don't think Barrios was great in that fight whatsoever. I think he was pretty bad in that fight, like very bad actually. Pacquiao didn't. I mean, he looked better than what we thought as a 46, 47-year old, however old he was, going in there and fighting a Mario Barrios, who is a world champion somehow. Yeah, he is one of the weaker champions, but still, Manny Pacquiao went toe to toe with a champion at the age of 46 or 47, one of the two, I can't remember. But now Pacquiao wants to come back and fight. It looks like he's fighting maybe Rolly Romero. I've heard rumors of Lomachenko. Just some other names too that I've heard around January that maybe should be announced pretty soon. I know it is. It is pretty much confirmed that Pacquiao is coming back, and I think that is strictly off of his performance in that Barrios fight. He thinks that he still has it, even though Barrios didn't really bring any pressure whatsoever. So this is another one. I think that Manny is getting a little over himself because his fighter ego is kicking in, and he thinks he still has it when, like I said, in reality, I do think it is still past his time. I'm worried this is going to happen with Danny Garcia too because he can fight at 154. I forget what fight this went down at or what weight this fight went down at Saturday night because I wasn't able to watch it. I watched some clips and stuff because it was streaming on like some super weird platform that I didn't even know how to get it, to be honest. But like I said, he can fight at 154. 154 is one of the most loaded divisions. As I talked about it in the last episode, everybody there, every champion at 154 is looking for an opponent. You know, Xander Zayas, he's looking for an opponent to kind of be a little bit of a tune-up before he defends, or he's looking for his first title defense to be a little bit of weaker opposition so he can have a hometown fight in Puerto Rico. I wouldn't be surprised if Danny Garcia goes in there and takes that fight. I know I've heard it around a little bit. If that fight is presented to Garcia, I think he takes it because obviously it's a payday. You're fighting a champion, you still have a shot at a title. Because, like I said, every fighter has an ego, and Danny Garcia is going to go in there thinking that he can win this fight. Even though his previous fight before this, on the Canelo and Berlanga card against Lara, I believe, I think it was Lara, was absolutely atrocious. Where he got knocked out, he got stopped. It looked like he didn't want to be there. It looked like he didn't belong there. So, yeah, I think take the knockout in the fourth round that you just did on Saturday and go out on a good note. Don't go out like, Juan Manuel Marquez or somebody that where you just get knocked out. Just there's some other names too. I'm just throwing out some random. But yeah, just end your career on a great note. Don't go take any more fights because Boots Ennis is also on the table. They're both Philly guys. They're probably friends. I think they're friends. I think they've trained at the same gym before. They've trained together. Obviously, being both Philly guys and both boxers, um, probably the two biggest name boxers in Philly. So I don't know if they will fight each other, but at the same time, it could be one of those where they're like, "Hey, we're friends, but we're both gonna get a pretty big payday from this, so let's do it. Let's do it in Philly. It'll sell out because we're both Philly people." I don't know. I don't think that's smart for Danny Garcia whatsoever because I think he gets blitzed out of there pretty quick because I think, like I said, he's just, first off, he's past his time. Second, Boost is just at another level right now, and I don't think that someone like this should be going in there and doing this. Because if you're past your time, sometimes you do it a little too long and it really backfires on you. We saw it with even Paulie Malignaggi this weekend. Paulie Malignaggi went and fought in a bare knuckle fight. He won the fight, but he got tore up. It looks pretty bad. Also, I don't know why he did that. Honestly, I don't know why he did that. You have pro box. You're really good on the mic. Just stick to your media stuff. Please don't go fight again. Um, but yeah, like I said, there are some big names. Danny Garcia could also go after some weaker opposition like Abu Sbarao, that's a fight that I like more for Danny if he still has the motivation to go out and get a title at 154. I didn't really expect us to be talking about Danny Garcia going for a world title in 2025, especially at 154 in the most stacked division in the sport, but who knows? This is boxing. Like I said, we've seen Pacquiao come back and get a world title off like a 10-year layoff. So, who's to say it won't happen? We'll see. But yeah, there was some pretty good fights on that card, or pretty good names on that card. I can't remember exactly who, but yeah, I don't really know how well it did. I mean, tickets they sold. I mean, pay-per-view buys it did, but there, yeah, like I said, it was on some weird streaming platform, so I wouldn't assume that it got too many. I know the New York people and Philly people probably went out to watch it because, Philly's not far from New York. It was in Brooklyn. New York's also a big boxing place, so I'm pretty sure people showed up and showed out just to see some fights happen. But yeah. Another one in Texas, we had MVP Prospect 16, where I got to watch the round of the year. I think it was pretty undecided that was the round of the year. Sebastian Juarez and DeMarcus Layton go at it. It doesn't go past a round. It was the first round of the fight. It was action packed from the opening bell. Juarez goes down in round one early. He has 2 point deductions, which I think it should have been three. They called a slip on what I thought was another knockdown, but um, they did rule it a slip, so he uh he didn't get an extra point deduction off that, but he did get two. Did get 2 point deductions. He's wobbling around the ring the whole time. He don't really know where he's at, so he just starts throwing punches. He lands something on DeMarcus Layton, who gets back up, takes another shot, goes back down again. He's like laying on the ropes. The ropes are fully holding him up. He don't know where he is. The ref calls it. Like I said, action from the first from the second the bell rang. If you have not watched the Sebastian Juarez and DeMarcus Layton fight or round, whatever, you can find the full round everywhere on YouTube. Go watch it because it was crazy, and I think it was the round of the year. Like I said, both fighters went down twice or three times, whatever. But yeah, MVP's Chop Chop Chaparro also gets back in the ring. He faces his first bit of adversity in his career. He faced an undefeated David Gutierrez. Gutierrez had Chop Chop Rock for a little bit, for about a whole round, pretty early in the fight too. You know, Chop Chop, he was having some trouble getting out of the way of Gutierrez's punches. Took some shots to the back of the head, which rattled his equilibrium. Sorry, that's a hard word for me to say for some reason. But yeah, if you know fighters, if you take a shot at the equilibrium, it's gonna throw everything off. Your legs gonna go weak. You completely lose your legs. So Chop Chop, he was wobbling around the ring with no legs. His legs were not under him. He makes it out of the round. His cornerman slaps him in the face to wake him up. Yes, that's true. You can go watch it. Um, he becomes more defensive after that. Gutierrez ends up punching himself out. He was just kind of throwing bombs the whole time. Um, he did punch himself out, gassed out pretty early. There was actually a point where he completely turned his back to Chop Chop, walked back to his corner in the middle of a round, pretty much saying I'm done because he started taking some shots once he gassed out. His corner still sends him out for the last round, and was probably a stupid decision because it was pretty clear that he was done. It was pretty clear that he was going to lose the fight from there. And he goes out and gets brutally knocked out in the last round. So I do put that. I think that's his corner's fault. I don't think they should have sent him out for the last one. But yeah, Chop Chop does stay undefeated. But, fights like these, young prospects face some adversity. They get clipped for the first time. They get rocked for the first time, get hurt for the first time. It's a learning lesson for all of them. And unfortunately, or actually fortunately, I'd say that's something that almost every prospect they're gonna have to go through at some point. Every fighter, if you're in the sport, you're gonna get rocked at some point. I think that's another thing too. Once a fighter gets rocked, I think we should stop counting them out. We saw it with Devin Haney. Ryan had him rocked. Ryan dropped him several times, and now we're just completely out on Haney. But yeah. Another fight on the prospects card was Crystal Rosado, which is Amanda Serrano's prospect. They call it her Amanda Serrano's protege. I believe the story was her and Crystal and Amanda met in like an airport in Puerto Rico or something. And Crystal went up to Amanda as a fan for a picture and called her to a sparring match. And they sparred. And Amanda really, really thought that she had some real skill and talent. So she signed her. So she was undefeated. She was a knockout artist for women um, in the women's division. She was undefeated, fought on a lot of MVP's prospect shows. I've seen pretty much all of her fights in person, other than this one. She takes her first loss this weekend to Sharetta Metcalf, which was a little controversial. I personally had Crystal Rosado winning the fight. I did think it was kind of close though, because Sharetta Metcalf, she's by no means a highly skilled fighter. She's just very. Sorry, my recording cut out. I'm not sure where I left off, but anyways, Amanda. I'll just run through it again. Amanda Serrano's protege, Crystal Rosado, takes her first loss to Sharetta Metcalf. I thought it was a bit controversial because I personally had Crystal winning. Um, Rosado was in line for a title shot, and that was only if she became or if she came out victorious in this fight. And she fell short to Sharetta Metcalf. Sharetta Metcalf by no means is a highly, highly skilled fighter. She's also signed to MVP. MVP just signs a lot of women trying to grow the sport. Sharetta's a Texas native, and the fight was in Texas. I don't know if that had anything to do with the judging of it or not. I could see where some people did think Sharetta won, but I personally had Crystal. I think it was enough. I don't know if it was enough to call it a robbery, but if I had to say, I would probably say it was a little bit of a robbery. I'm not. But yeah, Crystal takes her first loss there. Um, MVP usually knows what they're doing, so I think she'll bounce back pretty good. Speaking of Amanda Serrano, we got some Amanda Serrano fight news. Serrano versus Erica Cruz 2. The rematch of another former fight of the year in Amanda's hometown of Puerto Rico. This is 10 3-minute rounds. It takes place January 3rd. So you see MVP and especially Amanda doing that a lot, the 10 3-minute rounds, um, doing men's fighting rules to make the fights longer because obviously the 8-2s and the 10-2s are just super short for women. The 2-minute rounds just fly by a little too quick. And in an action-packed fight like this, like we saw the Katie Taylor and Serrano 2, which was on the Paul and Tyson card, that was 10 threes. And we deserved every extra minute of every extra round. So I think that's what we're getting here again with the Erica Cruz fight. I'm super stoked for this one. I Amanda's one of my favorite women's fighters. She never fails to entertain. Outside of the last Katie Taylor one, yeah, you could say that one wasn't the most entertaining. But if you haven't yet watched the first Erica Cruz and Amanda Serrano fight, I'd highly recommend you go watch that because it was an all-out war from the very beginning. You could probably find a picture of the shoes Amanda was wearing. She always wears her Jordan 1s to fight in. There was a picture of her Jordan 1s with blood all over them from the first Erica Cruz fight. So yeah, it was a pretty iconic picture for women's boxing. But next up, we'll just run through a few other fights that got announced this week. We won't go too in depth on these because we'll be covering them more as the fights come up. We have some more fights coming up on the schedule too, which we'll go over in the next episode. But fights announced this week. You have Anderson Silva and Chris Weidman on the Jake versus Tank card. This is a 6 round heavyweight bout. Uh, it's a long-awaited trilogy. Silva and Weidman, they fought twice in the UFC. If you're a UFC fan, you probably know that. Weidman beat Silva both times. So now they're settling it in boxing. They're doing it in the boxing ring. Probably a higher payday, and obviously they're just maybe a little bit too old to still do MMA. The first fight they fought in, Chris Weidman knocked out Silva in the second round, and then the second fight, Silva snapped his leg, which led to a referee stoppage, like pretty much right after it happened, because it was pretty brutal. But yeah, it was known as one of the biggest upsets in UFC history when Weidman knocked out Silva. I think Joe Rogan even said it was probably the biggest upset in UFC history at the time. So yeah, obviously two older guys, but we see this a lot on MVP cards. Though even when Jake's not fighting a UFC fighter, they'll throw some UFC fighters on here. I think it's for multiple reasons because it will attract some UFC fans because UFC fans are super loyal to their fighters. So usually when they're fighting at a boxing event, they still go and watch it. Like you got a lot of the UFC audience when Jake fought like Ben Askren and when Jake fought Silva and when Jake fought um Nate Diaz obviously. So yeah, this will definitely get in some of the UFC fans, especially since it's literally free on Netflix. It's looking to be a pretty big card. I know there's a lot of women's fights that they also added to that, which we'll probably talk about in the next episode as well, because some more did get announced. Avius Griffin also on there. Diego Pacheco's return did get announced. He's returning December 13th in Stockton as he's headlining an event. On the undercard, you have Joe Cordina and Gabe Flores Jr. Sky Nicholson's on there. Tito Mercado's on there. So that should be a pretty good card. You have Virgil Ortiz coming up fighting Erickson Lubin. So that'll be another really good card. I believe the co-main to that is Floyd Schofield and Jojo Diaz. I'm pretty sure. So yeah, we have a lot coming up, and there's also some more fights. Like I said, we'll go over in the next episode. We're back to weekly uploads, so if any more news comes out over these next few days, be ready to hear about it on the next episode that we have coming out. So yeah, um, just make sure to tune in to the next episode and show some support, like and subscribe if you are still watching, because we're gonna start going more in depth on this, and hopefully pretty soon we'll have some pretty cool guests on, and we'll keep this thing going because we're just starting from the ground up, completely revamped. Also, I'm moving pretty soon, so I'll have a pretty cool background, so it's not just going to be a blank wall and some pillows. So yeah, I will have a pretty cool setup, so it's not so boring to watch. I'll also have this uploaded on Apple Music and Spotify, or Apple Podcasts and Spotify pretty soon, so you'll be able to listen there on your way to work, on your way to school, whatever you're doing, or just in your headphones so you don't have to play the video on YouTube. But yeah, anyways, uh, everyone take it easy, and we will see you next week.